know you are getting excited and ready for spring break, so I hope you have a great week off. Just wanted to share a couple of quick comments for the discussions from weeks 8 and 9. I wanted to let you know a little bit more about listening. It really is good to acknowledge how important listening is, not just hearing. Remember, hearing is the biological function of your body, and listening is actually assigning meaning to what you hear. And we need to know how important listening is in almost any work environment. Listening for all important messages is a good idea, despite any barriers that there might be. Even if you do not like someone, it's still important to listen to the messages they share, just in case what they have to say may be important. You can, of course, guide the conversation with your listening skills, and if they are sharing information you don't deem important, you can direct the conversation to another topic or end the conversation if you need to. Self-reflexive listening is a great skill that leaders need to learn. I am certain that you can think of leaders who are not reflexive listeners and how difficult they are to work with or to work for. As a self-reflexive listener, don't forget to maintain your identity, acknowledge your personal goals, seek to understand the speaker, and be as sensitive as possible to your own needs as well as the needs of the speaker. I know from experience, listening in a conflict is difficult. This is probably when I have the most difficult time as a listener too. And I actually teach listening. So make sure that you try really hard when you're listening in a conflict situation. Once you have started to think about your rebuttal though, or what you want to say, or if you've interrupted someone, then you have stopped listening, and then you become an even more ineffective listener. I definitely like the idea of taking notes. I do this. I write down my thoughts that I want to address at another time, so that, or I can write down the speaker's thoughts so that I can repeat them back to the speaker to see that I understood exactly what they were saying. This is helpful not only in class but also sometimes in work meetings, so that we can make sure we get all the information we need. One can also be correct in assuming that sometimes it is not about you. Sometimes the information being provided is not about you. Sometimes what is being expressed may be angrily or in a conflict situation, again, is not about you. It might be about something else. It might be about something else that's happened to that person during the day. So we need to be careful about jumping to conclusions. A quick note on first impressions. Whether we like it or not, we are judged based on our first impressions. So we need to do what we can to manage the impression that we give. Remember, I just mentioned in our last video about choosing screen names that are appropriate for first impressions. So we need to remember in our first impressions that sometimes we might not want to show off our tattoos the first time we meet someone. We might want to hide them until we feel it's appropriate to reveal them. Think about what you have to say that is intelligent. Will your knowledge allow us to overcome our physical appearance? If there is anything we can do to change it, maybe you have tattoos that you can hide or tattoos that you can't hide, but make sure that your appearance is as neat as possible, because that first impression makes all the difference in the world. You want to, and I'm not just trying to harp on tattoos, there's body piercings, there's maintaining cleanliness, smelling as good as possible. First impressions are always important, so make sure that you do what you can to allow others to judge you appropriately. Rules, policies, and culture make our communication at work easier, but we must know when it is appropriate to follow all of these and when there might be an instance that we should maybe bend the rules a little. For example, all Catholic churches follow the same rules and policies, but not all churches, but the culture of each community dictates the experience that someone will have at a Catholic church. I attend a Catholic church in southwest Minnesota, which is a little bit on the liberal side. Although we have the same rules and policies, sometimes things are a little bit different based on the churches that you attend. When I lived in Colorado, the church had a completely different culture that I attended. So it's important to know which rules, policies, and cultures you are dealing with, so that if you need to change things up a little bit, you certainly can. or, as I said, bend the rules. Ethical communication does help people to avoid conflict, and it improves or creates effective relationships. Ethical communication is at the core of every organization. As we can see from examples in the news, past or present, if people don't communicate ethically, it can have grave consequences. So if we think about Exxon and Exxon Valdez, BP and their oil spill, Bernie Madoff, there's been lots of people in the news that have not made ethical or good decisions. You are right in assuming, though, that ethical communication is something that can be learned and something that we may have even learned in kindergarten. It is funny how things change by the time we reach high school. I have been, like I said, trying to teach my high school students about honesty, although I also have to try and teach my kindergartner that. So we have to teach them about ethical communications. In college, some students make up excuses that are not exactly true, like, my grandma died. Well, your grandma died last week or the week before too, and you didn't bring me anything from the funeral. Maybe she's died now the 4th time in this semester. You know what I'm talking about. There are some times when people make ethical choices or excuses for not getting their homework done that really aren't the actual truth. Sometimes in the workforce, people make poor choices in their communication as well, like, oh, I didn't take that money from the petty cash fund, or I was planning to put that back. So make sure that you are ethical in all your communication interactions. And then identifying inequity in the workplace identifying why inequity in the workplace happens and how it can happen is the first step to dealing with inequity in a workplace. So then you might want to ponder how you might minimize the inequity or the effects of inequity. We know that not all people are on a level playing field at work, but how can we minimize that enough to make certain that everybody feels appreciated in their job, and so that everyone feels that they make a contribution to the organization based on as much equality as we can establish in a working environment. Whew, that's a lot of stuff in a short amount of time. So, if you have any questions, definitely give me a call or send me an email. I look forward to talking to you again soon. Have a great spring break.